Let's start with some keys to victory for both teams in this ball game, and looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz's escapability will be key in this ball game. This is what makes him a tough player to defend because he's able to get himself out of trouble when things go haywire up front. The difference this year is in his ball security. He's protecting the football a lot better when trying to extend the play, and escapability and mobility is kryptonite to an aggressive defensive front. And if he's able to continue to perform well in this area against Carolina, then this Eagles offense will be able to sustain drives throughout the course of the ball game. In the passing game, the Eagles have to find ways to work the Panthers safeties. I think that's where they have the opportunities for them this week. They did a great job against the Arizona Cardinals, putting those safeties in conflict situations with their route combination. So look for them to get Nelson Aguilar or Zach Ertz matched up versus a safety, and for Wentz to recognize and attack. Defensively for the Eagles is about owning the interior of the Panthers offensive line. Quite honestly, the Panthers and the Eagles run game are philosophically the same thing and can be stopped the same way as well. And I like the matchup here for the Eagles, as it'll be up to Timmy Jernigan and perhaps Fletcher Cox, if he's out there, to win that battle on a consistent basis. In the secondary, more in particular on the corners, they have to be ready for a physical game with both Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess. The Panther wide receivers play a high post game on the outside, and Patrick Robertson and company have to be ready to match their level of physicality if they want to have a chance. Moving over to the Carolina Panthers in this ball game, Cam Newton has to continue to play efficient football. He's gotten more into a rhythm over the last 2 weeks throwing the ball. The football is coming out decisively and on time, working in unison with his offensive line and his receivers. This timing-based passing game looks to be the way to go versus this Eagles defense. The Panthers drafted two versatile offensive playmakers in Curtis Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, and it's time to cut them loose. The matchup advantage they own over the Eagles, in my opinion, is at the second level, so finding optimal matchups for both guys could yield a lot of chunk plays. And we know McCaffrey is a running back who can catch, but Samuel is a receiver who can also run, so find ways to get both on the field at the same time against this defense. Defensively, they have to be able to set the edge. The Eagles do a great job attacking the edge in a running game. Those defensive ends can't allow themselves to get reached, and backers or alley defenders have to be forceful when they do come up and set the edge. You want to get LeGarrette Blount going downhill and not allow him to search and ride the wave before planting his foot in the ground and accelerating downhill. Make him make that decision quickly, and that can be done if the edge is set. One thing I love about the Panthers secondary is that they communicate at all times. Corners talking to safeties about potential switches, potential combo routes, certain alerts based off personnel. All of that has to continue to be the forefront of this secondary's mission in this game against the Eagles' passing attack. The key matchup that is in the Eagles' favor in this ball game is with their trio of tight ends, Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck, and Trey Burton against the Panthers safeties and backers. That's where I believe the Eagles can have a lot of success offensively. Now, in my opinion, they are better at tight end than they are at wide receiver, and in this matchup, that's where I would try to exploit. For the Panthers, it's their wide receivers, Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess, against those Eagle cornerbacks. With the way both guys show the ability to play their size, they are never covered and always open. I really like what I'm seeing from Benjamin this season. He's coming through big time for this Panthers offense. The biggest X factor in this game for the Eagles, I think, could be KENJON. Unless Wendell Smallwood is a go, then he becomes the X factor in this game. But the overall point is that the screen game has to be in effect versus this Panthers defense, and a guy like Bonner or Smallwood has the quicks and elusiveness to make Carolina pay for their over aggressiveness. For the Panthers, I look at linebacker Shaq Thompson as the X factor. His ability in man coverage allows the Panthers to stay in base for the most part. He can match up versus the Eagles tight ends and some wide receivers, quite honestly. This is how they can get by with just okay safety play. Both he and Thomas Davis, and to be honest, Luke Kuechly, have the ability to drop in zone or cover in man very well. They also understand route concepts like they're on offense, but Thompson, I believe, in this ball game will play an even bigger role. Here's some quick fantasy advice for those that may have players on either team in this game on their fantasy roster. For Philadelphia, I would start Carson Wentz. The second-year QB has thrown for 300 yards in 3 games this year, and the potential game flow in conjunction with his head coach will more than likely call for him to throw the ball at least 30 times in this game, and at least one of those passes will reach the end zone. And I would sit ALSHON Jeffrey this week. I don't like the matchup, and I think if you have a guy like Nelson Aguilar or Zach Ertz on your roster or in your waiver wire, you go with him or go with with either one of those guys in your lineup. For Carolina, go ahead on and start Christian McCaffrey, especially if you're in a PPR league. I think that in either standard or PPR, he's a good flex option as opposed to RB1 or RB2. On the flip side, I would sit Jonathan Stewart. I think this game will end up being a Cam Newton versus Carson Wentz passing fest. So Stewart against that Eagles defense, in my opinion, won't be fantasy productive. Also, for more fantasy football advice and analysis, be sure to check me out every Sunday morning on the Fantasy Sports Network's Lineup Lock live show from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Check your local listings for channel listings, or you can simply download the Fantasy Sports Network app and also the Fantasy Sports Radio app as well. You can also watch us on YouTube Live by going to Fantasy Sports Network YouTube page located at youtube.com/FNTSY Sports Network. I like the Panthers in this ball game. Both teams are trekking in the right direction, and we may see these two again in maybe a wild card game or divisional playoff game. But the reason I like Carolina is due to the fact that their defensive front seven is aggressive, versatile, and instinctive. All three will play a role in curtailing this Eagles offense. And offensively, look for the Panthers to have success in the passing game while getting a creative chunk play or two, utilizing their first round pick Christian McCaffrey. This Thursday night game, in my opinion, will probably be one of the better ones this season.